Hey, I'm Clayton Wells from Automata restaurant.
I'm O Tama Carey from Lankan filling station, and this is Tasting at Home presented by Diners Club.
And I'll be cooking a whole roasted flounder with curry.
And I will be cooking clams in a gentle curry sauce with curry leaves and bay leaves.
Hello and welcome to the Taste Dining at Home series presented by Diners Club. I'm Alice Zaslavsky, otherwise known as Alice in Frames, and I'm your host for this series. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians from the land from which I'm zooming in to you from, the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Today's series ep is one that I've been looking forward to the entire time, not only because it features two of Sydney's hottest chefs and restaurants, but also because it's an ingredient-based ep, which I'm all about. And the ingredient that we're featuring is, of course, curry leaves. So we'll get a chance to chat a little bit more about the restaurants, a little bit more about the chef's journeys, but also a little bit more about an ingredient that you might not have cooked with before or might be very au fait with, and you can get some tips and tricks for cooking with it at home. So tune in and welcome Clayton Wells from Automata restaurant in Sydney and O Tama Carey from Lankan filling station. Welcome to you both. What a great way. I mean, modern technology, right? Now, we like to begin this by talking a little bit about what it's been like. 2020 has been an unusual year. I know, O Tama, for you, your restaurant, I'm based in Melbourne, so I've been watching Lankan Filling Station filling up people's social feeds for quite a while, and I was so looking forward to visiting in Sydney, and then everything went into lockdown. What was that experience like for you?
I think, like for everyone, it was pretty scary. I think the scariest bit was the unknown of it all. I remember that Sunday before, like there was that week where it was kind of winding up to the lockdown and we were about having to go to takeaway only. And that was just really bewildering because you didn't really know what was going to happen or how long it was going to happen for. So yeah, pretty wild.
And Clayton, your food obviously at Automata is so much about the experience, the a la minute, the service. So how did you adapt to COVID cookery, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I mean, we pretty early on we had to sort of make a decision whether or not we were going to go down the takeaway route or whether we were going to just sort of put it to sleep for a while. And we did choose to put it to sleep. I just, I couldn't really see my food being put into a takeaway box from Automata. It just to me, it just doesn't work. There's lots of different places where their food will translate to that sort of home environment, but I just couldn't find any way that it could have worked. So we just decided to kind of put it to sleep for a while and hope that it didn't last too long.
And did you have to adapt a lot of those dishes when you did sort of decide to switch to takeaway O Tama, or was it a pretty sort of simple transfer and switch?
Well, our food is pretty, it's rice and curry. We didn't do hoppers takeaway because they don't work. They just go a bit soggy. But apart from that, that was the really, I suppose, easy thing that we had in all of it was that our food works perfectly in takeaways. It's, it's braises and curries and things that are happy to sit in containers. So we didn't have that problem.
And was it mainly the same sort of people that were visiting, or did you find a whole new audience?
It was a lot of our regulars, I think, and local people who kind of kept supporting us and kept doing the takeaway. So that was really good. But it was also a bit weird because it's so faceless takeaway.
Put it in the box.
Yeah, you don't see, like when you're really busy during service, you get the atmosphere of a restaurant, and you can feel the vibe and you can see the people and you can hear the noise. And then putting things in boxes, you're just kind of with two other chefs and one floor staff person, and there's no noise or atmosphere, and you don't really know who it's going to. So it's different. It was really weird.
Yeah, and such a, I suppose, a juxtaposition to the heart that your food seems to bring and the vibe that I can totally sense. Is that part of your philosophy as a chef and restaurateur?
Yeah, I mean that's what I love. I love having, we're a small space and it's crowded and it's bustling and it's, that's all part of what I love about it, really. What I love about restaurants generally.
Totally. So Clayton, that means that you had a little bit of thinking time at home while you let Automata sleep.
Yeah, I sort of did. I mean, we still, our cafe across the road, A1 Canteen, that sort of continued on, and we were just doing takeaway from there. I mean, out of our takeaway window. So, I wasn't just sitting at home, which is good, because I would have gone mad. But on the same time, it did make, I had every night off for however many months, which I've never done in 20 years. So, there is time to think about what's important and what's not, So, I think it was quite a good time to sort of reflect and learn and think about what's going to be happening in the future. So
totally. And did that kind of guide you towards making the very difficult decision to close A1 as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of lots of things, lots of reasons were involved. But I mean, the reason why, there's two reasons. We opened A1 for the community that surrounds us, and no one's been in their offices, since March. So, where there's international travel and domestic travel has all but ceased. So, and we're connected to a hotel. So there's that. There's the local businesses, which they're and unis and ABC around the corner and SBS and everything. That's all there, but no one's really there. So, and our lease was about to run up. So it was a kind of, that was the thing that really made us have to choose that. Look, I mean, it is what it is. We've all been through a hard. Every business has a different scenario attached to their business and reason for being there. So it was just one of those choices that we had to make. I feel that next year is going to be quite difficult. And that's just the reality. I think it's great to be optimistic, and I am optimistic, but I'm also wary of the fact that we need to tighten the belt every now and then. And if something doesn't feel like it's going to be fruitful in the coming next few months or year, then maybe we just have to lay it to rest for a little while and do it some other time. That's a decision we made collectively, something that I strongly agree that think that it was the right choice. So.
And I'm sure lots of people watching this are ruining it, but totally feel where you're coming from, because after all, we're in the business of people, and when the people aren't there, what do you do? And O Tama, you mentioned, the energy, the dance, I suppose, that is between diner and kitchen. So how do you find the energy when you are just packing boxes?
I don't know. We just kind of did it. I think one of the great things that I've got really good staff, and everyone along the whole journey of it all of my staff, no matter what I said, they were like, yep, great, let's do it. So, we closed down we shut the restaurant for 3 weeks. And then we reopened for takeaway, and part of reopening was a lot of my staff weren't eligible for JobKeeper. A lot of my full-time staff weren't, because sponsorship, getting visas. So a big part of the decision was I would have liked to have stayed home for a couple of months. I would have been quite happy. A big part of, reopening was making sure everyone, could earn some money. And so, having my staff there was great. I think that was the thing that kept the energy going. They all had enthusiasm, and they all wanted to work and they wanted to do it. So I was really lucky with that.
And I'm sure you've been checking in with your staff at Automata as well. Clayton, did you kind of have like a group chat?
Yeah, I mean, that all come by, and we'd they'll come by A1 and see how we were going, and we were just sort of there. We were just doing takeaway stuff, but all we tried to do was, like Tama was just saying, is to get people back to work. I mean, and there were people that were affected by that fell through the cracks there for a while. So our all that we tried to do was to get back to making some money, so we could get those staff back to work. You know, a lot of people were covered by the JobKeeper, and some of them weren't. So they were the first ones that we got back to work. So, you know, and it sort of had, you know, it gave me a bit of an opportunity also to do the things for Automata that I haven't had a time to do in the last couple of years. You know, doing sort of, you know, doing a food book, working on training programs, doing all that stuff. You know, I had this grand dream that I was going to paint my basement kitchen on my own. That didn't actually happen, but you know, I just wanted to be doing something, and so did everybody else. They didn't care what it was, but they just wanted to be doing something because, you know, everyone might think that, you know, a couple of weeks off would be great. But, you know, when you're sitting in your home and you're not doing anything and you're not allowed to go out, I mean, it's they're running out of the house pretty quickly. So just getting things to do, and didn't even have to be many hours of the day. It could have been 4 hours of the day. Just get something happening. And, you know, and people's mindset was much better, and it was a bit more sharper than it probably would have been if they were just sort of sitting at home thinking about doom and gloom. So, you know, I think that's a really important thing, is to always, you know, our minds switch off pretty quickly. You know, it's like if you walk out of a kitchen and leave it for 3 weeks, you come back, everything's broken, nothing works again, and it's kind of what happens in your head. So just keeping motivation levels up and keeping positive is very important.
No, that's brilliant. And you mentioned a food book. Tell us about that.
Oh, look, I've just wanted to, you know, it's part of a training, not a cookbook, a food book, more of a training book for my staff. You know, I went back through. Took me a while. I went back through every dish we've ever served at Automata, and went through every ingredient and catalogued it, and did a little, you know,
remember everything.
Awesome.
Instagram. I've forgotten half the things that I've done, so I had to, you know, if that Instagram account ever got wiped out, I wouldn't remember past 3 months back. So, you know, but you know, I went through every dish. I remember what was on it, and, you know, different ingredients. So we can do some training when new staff come in, or you know, when we want to talk about something during briefings, with our floor staff or whatever. So everything from, you know, fermented bean pastes all the way through to fresh seaweeds and everything in between. Information about the farms we're getting things from. You know, nothing too detailed, but something that they can hold on to while you know, while they're working with us, and are constantly learning. I think that's, you know, sometimes those things can be put on the back burner, and I think it's important that, you know, and that people continue learning no matter what.
And in terms of I think the ethos and the philosophy behind Automata, what a fantastic time capsule as well of Australian food in this time as well. So, you know, that might be something that other people want to see as well, Clayton. So hopefully we see that. But on the other hand, O Tama, you've also been working on a little book of your own with some kind. Tell us about that one.
That kind of came out of the blue, but that was excellent. I mean, I love what they're doing. It's such a brilliant, simple, clever idea. I mean, the kind of premise behind it is making money for businesses, and they've the people who've written the books, there's a lot of really small places I've never heard of, and the idea is half the book's profit go to the restaurant, and then half they take the other half of the profit. But the idea was you can kind of do whatever you want. So they just said, write a book, and I was like, okay. And so it was just a really simple idea, and I based it on spices. I actually based it on a curry powder recipe, and I broke it down into the 10 spices that went into that curry powder, and then it just let me write about each of the spices and, you know, what you can do with them, not recipes as such, just more kind of ideas about flavor pairings. And then it culminates in one actual recipe in the book. So it was really fun.
That's such a cool, different way to think about a cookbook. And what a perfect segue for us to talk about curry leaves, because both of you cooked with curry leaves for your dishes for the Taste Dining at Home series. So I suppose I'm going to start with you, O Tama, because obviously curry leaves are something that is so prolific in Sri Lankan cuisine and in sort of subtropical cooking, or subcontinental cooking, I should say. So for someone that's just starting out with cooking with curry leaves, what do we need to know?
That you can put them in everything, really, pretty much. Curry leaves, they're really, really versatile, and it's surprising because, and I wrote about this in the book a little bit, a lot of the recipes you see for curry leaves, most of it is based in that, Indian, Sri Lankan, Nepalese, that kind of area of cooking. They don't really, you don't find them so much in other cuisines or in modern food so much. I think they're starting to, and there's a few exceptions, of course. But it's a really versatile leaf, and it's so delicious. And I think the best thing to do if you're about to start is just to smell curry leaves, and then you'll get the flavour. And also, they're best if they're fried a little bit first. Like that texture, it really brings out the flavour of the curry leaf better, rather than kind of stewing or anything else like that.
So when you say frying, so it's kind of like when you're tempering your spices, you add your curry leaves as well?
Yeah. Awesome. So in the beginning, yeah,
I love that. And Clayton, are curry leaves something that you cook with often, or was this a challenge for you?
No, not at all. I mean, I do. I love curry leaves. It's it hasn't been a sort of a flavour that's traditionally gone with my food at Automata, but in certain ways, like frying curry leaves is a very gentle smell and flavour of the curry. It's not strong, but it's just got that really really beautiful flavour. And I try. Things I do at Automata is I like to look at an ingredient and sometimes take away the traditions of it, and look at it for what it is, and think, what could that go with? I could make a curry leaf oil or something like that could go with some raw fish, or something that's not, rather than frying it with spices in a pot, which is my favorite way of eating it. But how that can translate into what I'm doing at Automata, and how it can because they're quite strong, it can sometimes be out of place. So how can I find a way of using that where it is where it fits in the menu?
And you deep fried those curry leaves for the flounder dish, and bringing out those kind of the anise notes in the curry leaves by frying it, and then the sweet flesh of the flounder. Just such a good dish. Did that take you a while?
And it's a texture thing as well. Look, I think I found my love of curry leaves from O Tama, actually, from when we cooked breakfast together a little while ago, and it was a fun day. But I love. We've got a beautiful soft flounder that's a bit sticky. The skin's a bit sticky from where it's sort of roasted. And then you get that nice little sort of crunch of the curry leaves as well, with that beautiful flavour. In other ways, I've done that sort of dish as well with rather than using a whole flounder, I've done it with kingfish wings. So it's cooked very much the same in the pan with the espelette, but then underneath I've also done a curry leaf cream. So it's sort of like I make a curry leaf puree, and then I fold it through creme fraiche. So that's also a way that I've used it as well. So
I like that.
So wait, yeah, me too. I need to know more about that. So are you blitzing up just fresh curry leaves to make that paste, and then folding the creme fraiche through that?
Yeah, I normally blitz them with some ice so they don't go brown, and then so they puree quickly, because you need to puree them before they start getting warm, otherwise they start to discolor. But and then fold that paste through some creme fraiche. So it's sort of what I serve that with. But again, I try and sort of look at the ingredient on its own, without the sort of the boundaries that are sometimes attached with traditions, and not to bastardize it in any way, but I just like to look at the ingredient.
And on the ingredient side for you, O Tama, clams aren't necessarily something that people might think to put with a curry sauce or a gravy, but it just looks so unctuous and silky, delicious.
Yeah, there's actually one. I was in Sri Lanka once, and I had this amazing clam curry. Years and years ago, we went we kind of collected them, and then my little lady friend went off and she came back with this clam curry, and she picked all of the clams out of the shells, and it was one of the most delicious curries I've ever had in my life. I can still kind of taste it. So yeah, clams and curry leaves apparently do go together.
Clams and curry leaves. And is it a coconut base that you're putting that sort of curry sauce? Yeah, awesome. And of course, both recipes, I should mention, are available on the Taste Dining at Home website, so you can make both of these things at home, because part of this series and part of the beauty of this series is that we're encouraging people to cook this at home. So, Clayton, flounder, a flatfish. Some people might feel nervous cooking flatfish at home. Is it easier than it looks?
I think a flatfish is easier to cook than a round fish. You can. It sits in the pan nicely. You can. You don't have to. You don't even have to turn it. So you can just get that beautiful sort of gelatinous sticky meat that is beside near the bones is very, very nice to eat. I find if you're going to cook a whole fish, it's a round fish is actually harder to cook.
And so, is there like a general rule for cooking a flounder to serve maybe to two to four people?
I think I always sort of cook it at a lower temperature. I mean, if you throw it in an oven that's 200 degrees, it's going to sort of buckle, and it'll cook in mysterious ways. So I think keeping the temperature at a low to medium heat is the key to cooking a whole fish like that, especially if you want to get that really nice soft texture, not too soft. We're not talking a mushy fish in any way, but we're just talking a nicely cooked soft fillet. And then also, if you're cooking at home, which most people are, using the grill function also on in your oven is good for getting that sort of skin nice and sticky and caramelized and that's what I love about flounder. It's just sort of a even heat, and you can get that with the flatfish.
And O Tama, we're so lucky. We've got some incredible clam and pipi producers, shellfish producers in Australia. Do you have a favourite that you'd recommend for people that want to try this recipe at home?
Ooh, I'm really fond of the Galwa pipis from South Australia. I think they're not, at the moment, it's out of season, or they're not picking them. But look, all over Australia you get beautiful shellfish, mollusks anywhere. So any of those little ones, pippies or clams or mussels, they all work just as well in this dish. So it's very versatile.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely. So, whether it's Cloudy Bay clams or, Port Arlington mussels, you can make this dish with something that you can buy even from the supermarket now.
Yeah.
I tried the sauce. You can dip bread into it and it'd be amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yum. Yeah. like a Sri Lankan bouillabaisse, I suppose.
Yeah.
Broth. Yum. Now I'm going to check if we've got questions coming up, because we've got some questions from the audience that were submitted in advance. If you're the sort of person that has questions for the top chefs in Australia, then you might like to keep an eye out for our next chefs and submit your questions for our next ones. But the first question that we have for you two is, what's the secret to a great spice mix? And I'm going to let you start that one off, O Tama, because Clayton can just say what she said.
I think balance really is the key to it. The thing, when I started really looking into curry powders and spice mixes before I opened Lankan Filling Station, I mean, I'd always just used the Sri Lankan one I bought from the grocer. I didn't really make my own that much, not kind of the curry powders, but learning about what each spice is and what they're there for, because they all have a bit of purpose. And also, like I said, the balance, because, some spices, you can use heaps of them, and then some spices are so overpowering that they can just make everything a bit murky and yucky, not so good. You kind of
so do you seek out, are you seeking out kind of, a reference point, or are you tasting as you go? How do you know how to make that balance?
You could buy my spice book and read what I tell you about it.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
No, I read a lot, and and I looked at a heap of recipes, and you see the commonalities, and you see the thing that I learned fairly early on was the coriander seeds. In most curry powder recipes, you find coriander seeds are used in the greatest quantity, and it's kind of the base spice for everything. And it's interesting because I loved coriander, but I never used coriander seed that much. I mean, I had a little bit, but not a lot. And then since I started making those curry powders, I'm a bit wild about coriander seeds now. But it's interesting because it's the base of everything, and on top of that, you can add the other flavors, and it helps bring them all together, and it helps give them depth. And yeah, that's.
Totally. And even, you talked about the function of spices beyond just flavour. Obviously, coriander seed is a natural preservative, and there's even the Ayurvedic properties of all of these spices. Is that something that you go into in your book that's available through Some Kind Press?
Yeah, I do, because it's really interesting. All of that food particularly does follow those principles, and you can kind of see it. Like, it is all a balance of the heating spices and the digestive spices and the cooling properties. All of that stuff is so interrelated to that food that you can't look at the balance without looking at the health balance of it all. And it really, once you look at it like that, you can see that it all makes sense. Like those bitter spices, they're really good for digestion. And that's why fennel seeds always go with pork, because, fennel seeds are such a good digestive, and pork's hard to digest. And you see that across all cultures. And it tastes good together, and it just kind of makes sense because it works taste-wise and health-wise. And a lot of those things do, you discover if you look a bit deeper.
I love that. And Clayton, you mentioned that you look at ingredients for, all of their properties. So how do you learn more about an ingredient before you start cooking with it?
Look, I think it's, for myself, it's all a sense of smell and taste, really. And I sort of, you look at it, the aromas, whether it's a sweet spice or whether it's a more savoury spice, and you think of, I just think into my, what ingredients I think that potentially could go with, and a lot of the time, we're adding. You could add things to ice cream, or you can add things to to anything, into a dressing. But I really, I don't personally do a lot of research on the actual thing, and it's more just looking at that ingredient and understanding, and grinding it in different ways, or toasting it in certain ways, or cooking it gently, or cooking it harder, just to see what those differences are, and tasting it. I mean, taste is everything when sort of coming up with new things. So and that's the way I sort of head towards things like that.
I love it. Now I'm waiting on our next question. There we go. What prep do you need to remember to do when you buy a whole fish rather than a fillet? Clayton, that one's for you.
Well, I'd like to gut the fish. That's normally a good start. Yeah, I mean, but often if you buy something, if I use a flounder, for instance, you'll normally buy a flounder at the fish market from your fishmonger that they're usually gutted. Some of them have very small scales, and I like to sort of run my knife over the top side of the flat fish, and then sometimes, depending on which part of the season, they will have roe inside them as well. So, some people like to just cook it with the roe in it. Some people don't. I don't mind it. I quite like it. But you can also use the roe to do other things as well. If you take the roe out of the fish, then you can cure it and dry it, and you can use it in you can use it in anything. You can use it in a pasta sauce. You can make I use fish roe in one of my dishes at Automata right now. So, that's another ingredient that's part of the fish that you can use. But I really just try and keep it quite simple. I mean, I do think that depending on the size of the fish, I'd like to cut the fins off if the fish is going to be hanging out of the pan, because it might cause it to stick. I think in the video I put a little bit of grease-proof paper on the side of the pan just so the fish wasn't going to stick to the side, because if the fish is completely cooked and then the tail stuck to the pan, you try and take it out, you're going to rip the fish.
So that's a good idea, actually. Baking paper on the base, because you still get that crispy bottom, but it still lifts off a heavy base pan. That's a very good tip. And O Tama, for you, obviously mollusks are something that people might not be as familiar with cooking. So any care tips from you for that?
They're actually really, really easy to cook, and they kind of go well with a heap of flavors. So it's a really easy, quick meal. All you really need is some sort of nice sauce. And you can, when I decide what I want to eat, I usually pick a country dish when I'm at home, like kind of what flavor I want. And then you just pick those flavors, and then you can just kind of combine them with with mussels or with clams, depending what you're feeling like. Because they open really fast. They're delicious. They're juicy. They're happy with all sorts of things. Bread, rice. You can do any of those.
I love it. And so cost effective as well, and fun to fiddle with. Now speaking, hand food, I love it. And that's the sense that I get. I can't wait to visit Sydney and have one of your hoppers. For me, that is just like, and Clayton, obviously you've spent a little bit more time, you mentioned, at home in the evening. So that means that you've been cooking dinner at home, which would be, the first time in a long time. So what kind of things were you cooking?
Well, I don't get to cook with my partner Tanya very often, but when we do, I mean, it's normally she's great. She's a great pasta cook, so she's great at making those dishes, and we cook together. But I like to get I cooked some fish the other night, some Murray cod, beautiful and readily available at the moment. So. I just try and eat light now. I used to eat a lot heavier, and ever since we've sort of been locked down, I need to keep an eye on the weight, on the waist. So but yeah, nice light food at the moment at home, but still a nice bowl of pasta every now and then. But simple.
And what about you, O Tama?
Same. We kind of go simple when we're at home, because my partner is a chef as well, so. It's usually a fight about who's going to have to cook rather than who wants. But we just have a barbecue, so we're very excited about that. So at the moment, everything's going on the barbecue, on the grill.
Love that. And it is coming into barbecue season. So have you got a hot tip for people, for home cooks, of things that they didn't realise they?
Hot tips. You can cook everything on a barbecue, and you don't need to get the oven dirty or the stove dirty, which is the best thing. Less cleaning.
I love it. Yeah. Clayton, did you have something to add?
Vegetables. Cook vegetables on the barbecue, not cooking steak. I think. I mean, we have a barbecue at Automata in the kitchen, and we have a big green egg in the kitchen, and most of the time we just cook vegetables on it. So. Get that really beautiful charred flavor in it, and it makes a big difference rather than just, boiling something or roasting it in the oven. You get a way better flavor, and it's really good to eat more vegetables also.
Couldn't agree more. And obviously we're in spring, so asparagus is rife. So hopefully people are popping asparagus on their barbecue. But any other vegetables in particular that you love to grill?
Mostly barbecue. Any sort of spring onions or shallots or onions. That family goes well. There's lots of beautiful beans and peas and things like that around at the moment. So the runner beans and broad beans over the fire is very delicious. So you mix all that together and season it with a little bit of olive oil and salt, and you don't need anything else. So that's a beautiful way to cook vegetables.
And
that's awesome.
Broccoli is good. I like broccoli on the barbecue.
Ooh, how long are you cooking that broccoli on the BBQ for?
We actually grew some broccoli shoots, and they were quite big broccoli shoots, and we put them for about 10 or 15 minutes, I think, so quite a while. But we'll just char it, and the insides were nice and steamy, and it was pretty yummy.
That sounds delicious, and that really, to me, series presented by Diners Club is all about, because it's all about inspiring people to head out to your restaurants when they can, but also pick up tips from the top chefs in Australia that they can apply to cooking at home. And as you say, keep it simple at home, cook with great ingredients, seek out Australian, seek out local when you can, and support the producers and the growers that are making the food at your restaurants as delicious as it is. So, I'm really, truly looking forward to heading back to Sydney, and I've got both of your restaurants very high on the list. So I look forward to catching up with you when I'm back in town. But until then, I could not thank you both enough for your time today, for sharing your recipes as part of the series. If you haven't already seen the videos at home, do check them out. It's not just Clayton and O Tama's that are delicious dishes, but we've got 4 other eps for you to check out. So it's becoming quite the series. So you've got lots of binge watch, fantastic, delicious food, and some inspiration for all at home. So a big ups to you, a big ups to Diners Club for supporting the series, and big ups to Taste Dining for organising, and big ups to you at home for watching. And tune in next time, and we'll come to you with more tips and inspiration. And until then, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.